All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin unfiltered video in just one moment.
The black voters do indeed matter. Channel 4 from the UK dropped an explosive story today that showed the Donald Trump campaign in 2016 specifically targeting and having the data to keep 3.5 million black people from voting. This is some of their report.
Because it disproportionately affected the poorest places. What nobody realized at the time was that by using the database, the Trump campaign could actually identify individuals on these streets who might be deterred from voting. Like other states, black voters in Wisconsin were disproportionately marked for deterrence. They made up just 5.4% of voters, but 17% of the deterrence group. More than a third of black voters in Wisconsin were classified as deterrence. Contrast that with the voters the Trump campaign thought he could win over. 75% of them were white, but less than 2% were black. We've come here because we've identified exactly how many people were marked for deterrence by the Trump campaign, and using the public voter roll, we've been able to match them and work out how many of them stayed at home. Take Ward 116. The Trump campaign was aware of 1,440 potential voters here. 80% were black. Almost half, 44% of the ward, was marked for deterrence. That's 636 people. So how many of those black deterrence voters actually turned out on election day? We went through the records. It was just 36%. Overall turnout in the precinct fell from 75% in 2012 to just 56% in 2016. And this wasn't restricted to one ward. Take these two back-to-back.
Digital voter suppression specialist Shireen Mitchell joins us right now. Shireen, this report shows how data is used to hyper-target people to keep them from voting, and how the Trump administration, when he was saying, what the hell do you have to lose? And then when he thanked black people for not voting, this was one of the reasons why right here.
Exactly. We did this report, our report before the 2018 elections, but we have been tracking this in 2016. And let's be clear that not only were they targeting black voters, so was Russia. And honestly, in 2020, we've seen even Democratic presidential candidates target black voters. The key is, why are black voters being targeted, and why is that not only a domestic issue but also a foreign issue, that they believe that in order to win an election you have to target black voters? The data here that is very specific, where he actually went on the ground and actually looked at the types of places that were focused on black voters. So again, you and I have had this conversation. 90K in Michigan, right, did not vote top of the ticket because they believe the disinformation of they are both the same. The key piece now that we've learned some more additional information is 70K of those people were Detroit alone. So when we talk about these cities, we're talking about places like Philadelphia, Milwaukee. And so the fact that we now have this information, we now know that the data that we were providing now has an impact where they went out to the ground to say, here are the black people who were impacted, and here's the information about you that was collected. I always get people telling me that when I say that black people were targeted, that I'm basically saying that my community doesn't understand or get what digital voter suppression is, or disinformation in general. What I've always been saying is that we are the ultimate target. And if we don't understand that, we do not know how to combat that. And this report basically says, not only did the Trump campaign do this, but also Russia.
Well, first of all, those two are linked. And the great thing, what they did is, with this report, they literally went to those doors, knocked on those doors, and people were absolutely shocked to discover how they were targeted, the kind of messaging they were targeted. And then that's also what happens in campaigns when robocalls are targeted to certain houses, trying to get them to tell them elections on a different day. Also, the targeting that took place to black people, specifically saying you could vote by text. You can vote by email, which are all lies.
Absolutely, not only just lies, but that's literally digital vote suppression. So anything that tells you where you can vote when it's a lie, where you can text your vote is a lie. All those things are a part of digital vote suppression. And so they were specific targets. And I just want to make sure that we're being clear about the language that they use. They're using deterrence, and we're talking about vote suppression, i.e., in addition, digital vote suppression. They had a campaign where they had 3 targeted groups, and those targeted groups included white women who were college-bound, white liberals to some extent, but the number one was also African American. And I've seen different iterations of this, but that campaign actually talked about Project Alamo, and there's like videos out about what the team did. And so this isn't just about what Russia did. It was that Facebook participated. Why did Facebook participate? Because they had an embed in the Trump campaign in Project Alamo alongside Cambridge Analytica. Again, Cambridge Analytica was checked and shut down by European and UK stance because that's where they came from. That does not change the stuff that they did in America, and we're still sort of getting our hands wrapped around that.
Yep.
While we were key telling people that all of this was happening, not just Russia but also domestic.
Absolutely. Shireen Mitchell, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me.
Rena, this is the stuff that we have to look out for. And again, the Trump campaign, they knew that if black voter turnout dropped, that helped their campaign. Trump was open about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, this is a really big problem because there's a lot of people in communities of color who believe that algorithms and artificial intelligence, these are just phrases of the future. These are digital tools that are, far ahead in the future. And to that, I say the future is here now, my friends. I mean, these are tools Cambridge Analytica used and particularly algorithms to keep black voters from showing up. To the tune of 3.5 million black Americans were deterred from voting in 2016. This is the most egregious, I believe, violation of the public trust. I mean, a now president, his campaign engaged in this kind of ridiculousness. He was welcoming that kind of stuff. Now, look, I just want to put a full stop right there for a second and say I've been having a lot of conversations with white American women who voted for Trump in 2016. I've been having a lot of conversations with them over the past year, trying to figure out where their heads are at for this fall, and also just trying to figure out what do they think of people like Joe Biden. And over I hear Joe Biden's just like everybody else. He's a lifelong politician. Trump tells it to us like it is. He's blunt. He's not for everyone. But guess what? He's saying it in plain speak. He's open about his intentions because he speaks them so bluntly and boldly and openly. And I just say to that, well, don't we think there's something else at play there? And now we know there are nefarious acts at play. He wanted these people to stay home, not only because the bigger picture is here. He thinks of black and brown Americans as lesser than him, lesser than white Americans. So deter them from showing up and expressing their will through their vote. And this is what this is all about, keeping black voters home because he believes they're lesser and do not have a place in society at the place at which white Americans do. And so that's what this is all about. I've always believed him to be a white supremacist underneath it all. And now we just know that he engaged in, things like this. This is so huge. This data leak is just so bombastic, and it's not being covered the way it should be, Roland. I'm really frustrated by that. This should make major headlines in the U.S., and it isn't.
Well, and Avis, bottom line is this here. It's called deterrence for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, how many times do we have to say on this program? And, your viewers are wise enough to know this. And I'm hoping that this will just really, extrapolate beyond as we sort of share your show. But here's the thing that we need to realize as Black people. If your vote didn't matter, they would not go through all of these different, very expensive and targeted efforts that they invested in to stop you from voting. And it hasn't stopped. This is just one of many ways in which they attempt to suppress the Black vote year after year after year. And they're doing it right now in front of our face. Some of them are doing it, I would believe, by engaging and recruiting Black faces to tell you not to vote, too. If they're telling you not to vote, that should tell you something about what their intentions might be and who they might be beholden to.
Folks.
Also, Roland, real quick. I mean,
yeah.
our elections are not secure. Mitch McConnell made sure our elections are not secure. And we need people to know that since 2016, nothing's changed. The federal government has not invested in making our elections secure. So people need to understand that, the same kind of nefarious activity, it's still at play.
Yep.
It can still happen. It is up to us to protect our votes, to figure out how to show up right and make sure our votes are counted. So,
yep.
I want to tell you, we all need a voting plan. My plan is I applied for absentee a long time ago. I'm walking my ballot to my Fairfax County Center, my municipal center, and I'm going to put it in the hands of government officials myself.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.